So the obstacle that I have overcome in my life is essentially failing out of engineering school. I went to college at the University of Texas at Austin, initially starting as an aerospace engineer. My transition from high school to college was the classic going from a big fish in a little pond to a little fish in a big pond. So it was a massive culture shock to me whenever I was failing all of my STEM classes by 3/4 of the way through my first semester. This was difficult for me because I graduated as valedictorian from my high school, and I didn't realize that I didn't know how to study. So it was an identity shock, to say the least, when I realized that I wasn't the smartest person on campus, that there were thousands of students who had just as many, if not more, achievements than I did. And it was a wake-up call. So before the end of my first semester, I removed myself from the engineering school, because if I was going to fail, I was going to fail on my terms. And I started looking for other avenues that I could potentially pursue. All of my dreams for being an aerospace engineer had crumbled by that point, so I was kind of desperate to find something new. It just so happened that I had to take a psychology class just as a basic requirement, and ended up falling in love with it. It was something that came to me quite naturally, that was interesting, that I enjoyed, and that I was much better at than all of my STEM courses. Right off the bat, I got involved in as many psychology-related items as I could. I joined a research lab, I joined a lot of clubs, and started to make a name for myself, so to speak, as a budding psychology student. Through my research, I was able to gain not only a lot of research experience and understanding into what the life of a psychologist looked like, but I also got to attend conferences and work with graduate students who were experts in their field, and get my name on papers and publications, which was a really unique experience. And so at that point, I set my sights on another dream of becoming a clinical psychologist, which, if you aren't familiar, involves a lot of graduate school, specifically getting a PhD in clinical psychology. So to help achieve those goals, I ended up getting admitted into the psychology honors program at UT, where I did my own research project and wrote a thesis, and got to spend a lot of time with like-minded peers who were interested in pursuing the same path that I was in. By the end of my third year at UT, it was apparent that I was going to graduate a semester early, which was awesome for me, but also very anxiety-inducing, because it meant that I was an entire semester ahead of my peers, the other people in my honors program, which meant that I had to make a decision as far as what my next steps in life were going to be before all of my friends had to, which was really scary. And I randomly just started applying for jobs and got an opportunity to work for Chevron as a support specialist, essentially. And taking that job meant that I had to relocate to a new city in the middle of my last semester, which seemed like a really good idea at the time, but ended up being very difficult for me, emotionally, academically, and socially. I did get a job that paid pretty well, but I also had to leave all of my friends behind. I had to finish school remotely. I had to finish my thesis remotely, which ended up being a lot more difficult than I thought it would be. And then also, I got dumped. I had to move to a new city and live in the suburbs where I didn't know anybody. I didn't have any friends. And it was also like the winter time. So the seasonal depression combined with like the actual depression that I was experiencing was really powerful. And I experienced another loss of identity. I got so frustrated with having to finish my thesis remotely that I wanted to step away from doing research altogether. And part of the honors program at UT is creating a poster and having a poster session so that your peers, your friends, and your family can see what you've been working on for the past year. And I had a panic attack during mine and had to leave early. I also kind of quit my thesis. I didn't really put in the effort that was required to finish it in the way that I wanted to finish it. And to this day, 3 years later, I haven't gone back to look at it just because I know that it's not like the finished product that I would have wanted it to be. And again, I just felt aimless and felt like a failure again because I didn't want to pursue graduate school, which meant I could never be a clinical psychologist, and that means I'm a failure. It took a long time grappling with those feelings to eventually come to grips with the idea that what you do for a living doesn't necessarily need to be where you get all of your fulfillment from. And I think that that's a really valuable lesson to learn as a young adult, a young woman. I've started to focus a lot on myself and foster a lot of hobbies. I have hobbies now, which I didn't have as a student or when I first moved to Houston from Austin. And that's been a really good experience. I've learned a lot about myself. And, you know, even though I'm not an astronaut or a clinical psychologist, I am a project manager in tech projects now, and that's pretty cool. I've got to learn a lot about tech and meet a lot of really smart and compassionate people who have given me little life lessons here and there that have really helped put things into perspective for me. So even though my life didn't go according to the plan that I had initially set for myself, I think I'm in a spot that I'm happy with, and I wouldn't have anything that I have today if I wouldn't have failed out of engineering school. So it feels really good to have come to grips with that, and I'm a persister.